A black single dad spent all day avoiding his CEO. Then she walked in as his blind date. The conference room on the 14th floor smelled like leather and cold coffee. Every seat was filled. Senior leadership, vice presidents, the CFO with her arms crossed, and at the head of the table, Vivian Cross, CEO of Castellane Media Group, sitting perfectly still, her jaw tight, her eyes locked on the man standing near the door in a gray maintenance uniform. Daniel Wright hadn't said a word yet. He didn't need to. The publicist standing beside him was doing all the talking. She'd pulled up a video on the conference screen, a skincare ad, bright and glossy, with a piano melody underneath that had 47 million views. She was explaining how she'd tracked down the composer, how the trail led here, to this building, to this man. Daniel Wright, she said, glancing at her notes, also known as D. Wright. One of the executives, an older black man with silver in his beard, leaned forward in his chair. Marcus Lyle, VP of Creative, 20 years at Castellane. He stared at Daniel like he'd seen a ghost. "Wait," Marcus said. His voice was quiet, dangerous. "What did you just say his name was?" "Daniel Wright. D. Wright. He's the composer behind D. Wright." Marcus stood up, slow, deliberate. He looked at Vivian, then back at Daniel. "You have D. Wright working in your mailroom?" The room exploded. Questions, shock, confusion. Someone pulled up his credits on a laptop. Grammy nominations, film scores, Beyoncé, Alicia Keys, John Legend. The publicist kept talking, but no one was listening to her anymore. They were all looking at Daniel, and Vivian's face had gone pale. Because 3 days ago, this man had been sitting across from her at a restaurant, waiting for a blind date, a date she had agreed to. A date that ended in 60 seconds of mutual horror when she realized the match her app had chosen was the janitor she'd humiliated in front of 200 employees. She'd filed an HR complaint Monday morning, accused him of stalking, had his building access restricted to the basement, and now the entire executive team was learning that the man she'd called pathetic was a legend. If you believe that the people society overlooks are often the ones carrying the most extraordinary stories, stay with this one. Because what happens next will shatter every assumption about power, worth, and what it means to be truly seen. Before we begin, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated because of the job you had? But to understand how a Grammy-nominated composer ended up in a mailroom and how a blind date became a reckoning, we need to go back 18 months to the day a man decided that silence was safer than being known. Daniel Wright's alarm went off at 5:30 every morning. He showered, dressed in one of his 5 gray polo shirts, made coffee he didn't taste, and left his apartment on the south side by 6:45. The drive to Castellane Media Group took 32 minutes if he avoided the expressway. He always avoided the expressway. He arrived at 7:15, clocked in, picked up the mail cart from the basement loading dock. By 9:47, he was moving through the atrium like a shadow. The building was all glass and steel, 15 stories of polished floors and open workspaces where young producers talk loudly about metrics and engagement rates. Daniel pushed his cart along the perimeter, staying close to the walls. His route never changed. 3rd floor first, marketing and sales, then 5th floor creative, then 9th floor legal, then back down to executive admin on 14, except on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, he did the creative floor at 9 a.m. instead of 10. He'd memorized her schedule 18 months ago. It was printed fresh every Monday morning and left on her assistant's desk by 8. Vivian Cross, CEO. Tuesday and Thursday, creative floor tours, 10 to 11 a.m. Wednesday, executive lunch, 14th floor conference room, noon to 1 p.m. Daily departure, executive garage, 6:45 to 7 p.m. Daniel adjusted his routes accordingly. He took the west elevator up to 5. The doors opened onto an open floor plan filled with editing bays and whiteboard walls covered in production timelines. A few early arrivals glanced up as he passed. No one spoke. He delivered envelopes to the department coordinator's inbox, turned his cart around, and headed back toward the elevators. That's when he heard it. Piano. Faint, coming from one of the editing bays. A jazz progression. chromatic runs that descended and then resolved into something warm and familiar. Daniel stopped. His hand tightened on the card handle. The melody was Coltrane, A Love Supreme. Second movement. Someone was working on a documentary and had laid the track under archival footage playing on a monitor. Daniel could see the screen from where he stood. Black and white images of a smoky club. A man at a piano, hands moving like water. For a moment, Daniel wasn't in the building anymore. He was in Nashville, Studio B. Lydia was sitting beside him with her violin, her bow hand resting lightly on the strings. They'd been working for 6 hours on a film score and she'd just played a wrong note. Daniel had stopped, looked at her, and she'd started laughing. That bright, helpless laugh that made her whole face light up. "Again," she'd said, still smiling. "From the top." The memory fractured. Daniel blinked. The editing bay was empty except for the monitor. The music kept playing. He turned away, pushed his cart toward the elevator, and pressed the call button 3 times. The doors opened. He stepped inside. Pressed 9 for legal. When he reached 14, he checked the hallway before exiting. Clear. Vivian's office door was closed, which meant she was in the Monday morning strategy session in the North Conference Room. He rolled his cart to her assistant's desk, dropped a stack of interdepartmental memos in the inbox, and checked the printed schedule lying next to the keyboard. Tuesday, October 17th. Creative floor walkthrough, 10 to 11 a.m. He'd done that floor an hour ago. Wednesday, October 18th. Executive leadership lunch, 14th floor conference room, 12 to 1 p.m. He'd take his break at 11:30. Be back by 1. Thursday, October 19th. Creative floor walkthrough, 10 to 11 a.m. He'd do it at 9 again. Daniel folded the schedule back exactly how he'd found it, returned to his cart, used the west elevator down to the lobby. By 6:30 p.m., his route was finished. He clocked out, walked to his car parked 2 blocks away on the street, and sat in the driver's seat with the engine off. The executive garage exit was visible from where he'd parked. At 6:53, a black Audi emerged and turned left toward the expressway. The license plate read VXCROSS. Daniel waited until 7:15. Then he started his car and drove home. He'd done this every weekday for 18 months. The math was simple. If he stayed invisible, she couldn't see him. If she couldn't see him, she couldn't humiliate him again. And if no one asked him who he used to be, he wouldn't have to explain why he'd disappeared. Daniel unlocked the apartment door at 7:48. The sound of piano met him before he crossed the threshold. Imani was playing in the living room, a gospel arrangement, something he recognized from her choir practice. Her fingers moved through the chords with the easy confidence of a kid who'd been playing since she was 6. The melody filled the small space, warm and insistent. Daniel set his keys on the counter, hung his jacket on the hook by the door. "Hey, baby," he said. She didn't stop playing. "Hey, Dad." He moved into the kitchen, pulled a pot from the cabinet, filled it with water, and set it on the stove. Spaghetti, her favorite. The same thing he made every Monday. The piano stopped. "How was work?" Imani asked. "Fine." "Just fine?" "Yeah." She started playing again. A different song this time. Something slower. Daniel opened a jar of sauce, poured it into a pan. The smell of garlic and tomato filled the kitchen. He stirred it once, turned the heat to low, and leaned against the counter. Imani finished the song. The apartment went quiet except for the bubbling water on the stove. "Dad," she said. "Yeah? We need to talk." Daniel looked over. She was sitting on the piano bench, turned toward him. Her hair was pulled back in 2 puffs, and she wore the same serious expression she used when she was about to say something he wouldn't like. "About what?" he asked. "You need a life outside work and me." Daniel sighed. "Imani, I'm serious. I have a life." "No, you don't." She stood up, walked to the counter, hopped onto a stool. "You go to work, you come home, you make dinner, you watch me do homework, you go to bed. That's not a life. That's just existing." Daniel turned back to the stove, dropped pasta into the boiling water. "I'm fine," he said. "Mom died 4 years ago." His hand tightened on the wooden spoon. "I know when Mom died." "Then you know it's been long enough." Daniel didn't answer. He stirred the pasta, watched the water churn. "I made you a profile. Imani said. He looked at her. What? On Spark. It's a dating app. She pulled her phone from her pocket, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward him. See? Daniel stared at the screen. There was a photo of him, the one from last year's father-daughter dance at her school. He was smiling in it. He barely recognized himself. Below the photo was a bio. Daniel is a good dad, a hard worker, and someone who's been through a lot but still shows up every day. He likes jazz, long drives, and spaghetti dinners. He's quiet, but that's because he listens. He's looking for someone who understands that life isn't perfect, but it's still worth living. Daniel set the spoon down. Imani, no. I already got matches. Delete it. Dad, this is manipulative and dangerous. You don't put my information on the internet without asking. Imani didn't flinch. She set the phone on the counter between them. You've been a ghost, she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. You're here, but you're not really here. You stopped playing music. You stopped going out. You stopped being the person Mom fell in love with. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not fair. It's true, though. I'm taking care of you. I know. Her eyes softened. But I need you to take care of you, too. I need you to be alive again, not just present. The water boiled over. Daniel turned, grabbed the pot, moved it off the burner. Steam rose between them. I don't want to date, he said quietly. I know. Then why are you doing this? Because you won't do it yourself. Imani picked up her phone, scrolled through the screen. Just one date. I'll pick the person. If it's terrible, you never have to try again. I promise. Daniel leaned against the counter, rubbed his face with both hands. Imani, one date, Dad. That's all I'm asking. He looked at her. Really looked at her. She had Lydia's eyes, the same stubborn set to her mouth when she decided something was important. And she was right. He knew she was right. He'd been going through the motions for 4 years. Work, home, sleep, repeat. He told himself it was enough, that being stable was the same as being whole, but his daughter could see through him. One date, he said finally. Imani's face lit up. Really? One. You pick. If it's bad, we never talk about this again. Deal. She scrolled through the app. Her expression shifted from focused to thoughtful. Then she stopped, stared at the screen for a long moment. What? Daniel asked. This one. She turned the phone toward him. The profile showed a woman. No face in the photo, just a silhouette against a city skyline. The bio said CEO, media industry, loves live music, eclectic taste, tired of the usual Chicago scene. Daniel frowned. A CEO? She likes jazz, look. Imani tapped the screen. She mentioned Coltrane in her profile. Imani, I don't think... One date, you promised. Daniel looked at the profile again. Something about it felt oddly familiar. The phrasing, the way the words were arranged. But he couldn't place it. Fine, he said. Imani grinned. Swiped right. Wednesday morning, the atrium filled with 200 people before 9 a.m. Chairs had been arranged in rows facing the stage. Producers sat toward the front, marketing and sales in the middle. Facilities staff stood along the back wall. Daniel stood near the emergency exit, arms at his sides, eyes forward. The quarterly all-hands meeting was mandatory. He'd checked the schedule Monday. Vivian would be presenting. He'd considered calling in sick, but missing a mandatory meeting meant a write-up, and a write-up meant attention. So he came, stood in the back, made himself small. Vivian walked onto the stage at 9:03. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek style that showed the angles of her face. She smiled at the crowd like she was about to give them a gift. Good morning, Castellane, the room murmured back. Good morning. I want to start by saying how proud I am of this team. Vivian's voice carried easily through the space. Confident, warm, practiced. This quarter, we exceeded our content production goals by 18%. Our engagement metrics are up. Our brand partnerships are thriving. And that's because of you. Scattered applause. Vivian clicked a remote. A slide appeared on the screen behind her. Department names in bold. I want to call out a few teams specifically. Creative, your documentary series on a sustainable fashion is getting incredible traction. Marketing. The campaign you ran for our new podcast network brought in 3 major sponsors. Digital, your social strategy is industry leading. More applause. People in the front rows sat a little straighter. Daniel stayed still. He could see the back of Vivian's assistant's head 3 rows up. Kira. She was typing notes on a laptop. But I also want to talk about something equally important, Vivian said. She clicked to the next slide. The words appeared in white text. Growth, opportunity, second chances. At Castellane, we believe in investing in our people, all our people. We have tuition reimbursement programs, skills training, professional development opportunities, because we know that talent exists everywhere, and sometimes all someone needs is a chance to rise. Vivian's gaze swept across the room. Then it landed on the back wall, on the facilities staff, on Daniel. Take our facilities team, for example. She gestured toward them. These are the folks who keep our building running. They're here early. They stay late. They do essential work that often goes unnoticed. A few people in the crowd turned to look. Daniel's chest tightened. And we want to make sure they know that Castellane believes in growth for everyone. Vivian smiled. Her eyes locked on Daniel. Daniel, right? The room went quiet. Daniel didn't move, didn't speak. Have you ever thought about getting your GED? Vivian's voice was bright, encouraging, loud enough that everyone could hear. We have tuition reimbursement programs. You could take classes, build new skills, open new doors. Someone in the third row laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. Then someone else joined in, then a few more. The laughter rippled through the atrium like a wave. Some of it was uncomfortable, some of it wasn't. Daniel's hands curled into fists at his sides, his jaw locked. The scar above his eyebrow felt like it was burning. He had a GED. He'd gotten it at 17. Then he'd gone to Berklee College of Music on a full scholarship. Then he'd gotten a second degree in composition from UCLA. He said nothing. Vivian's smile widened. Just something to think about. We're here to support you. She clicked to the next slide, moved on to quarterly revenue projections. Daniel stood against the wall and stopped hearing words. The meeting lasted another 20 minutes. When it ended, people filed out in clusters, talking, checking phones, heading back to their desks. Daniel waited until the atrium was nearly empty. Then he walked to the mailroom. It was a small space in the basement, concrete floors, metal shelving units, a single desk with a computer that barely worked. He sat down in the chair, stared at the wall. His phone buzzed. A text from Imani. How's work? He didn't answer. The door opened. Marcus Lyle stepped inside. The VP of Creative, 50-something, silver in his beard. He'd been at Castellane for 20 years. Marcus looked at Daniel, opened his mouth, closed it. Then he shook his head and left. Daniel sat in the silence. Outside, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Voices passed by. The building hummed with the sound of people who had somewhere to be. Daniel pulled up Vivian's schedule on his phone. Not the assistant's printed copy, the digital version he'd learned to access through the company portal. He started making notes. Creative floor tours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 to 11 a.m. He'd move those routes to 8:30, be done before she arrived. Executive lunch, Wednesdays, noon to 1 p.m. He'd take his break at 11:15, return at 1:30. She used the main lobby entrance at 8:45 every morning. He'd start his shift at 7, be on the upper floors by the time she arrived. She left through the executive garage between 6:45 and 7 p.m. He'd clock out at 6, wait in his car until 7:30. 3 times this week, she'd use the 14th floor women's restroom at 3 p.m. He'd avoid that floor entirely between 2 and 4. Daniel typed it all into his phone. Times, locations, patterns. 18 months ago, he'd been careful. Now he would be invisible. Thursday evening, Imani showed Daniel her phone at dinner. She responded, she said. Daniel looked up from his plate. Who? The match, the CEO. Imani turned the screen toward him. Look. The message was short, professional, friendly. Hi, thanks for the match. I don't usually do this, but your profile caught my attention. What kind of music do you listen to? Daniel set down his fork. What did you say back? Nothing yet. That's your job. Imani slid the phone across the table. Go ahead. Imani, you promised. One date. This is how it starts. Daniel picked up the phone, stared at the message. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. He typed, I like jazz mostly. Coltrane, Ellington, Hiromi Uehara. He handed the phone back to Imani. She read it, nodded, and hit send. 3 minutes later, the phone buzzed. Good taste. Do you play? Daniel's chest tightened. He took the phone back. Typed, used to. The response came faster this time. Why'd you stop? Daniel didn't answer that. He wrote instead. What about you? Do you play anything? No. But I love live music. Saw Wynton Marsalis at the Chicago Theater years ago. One of the best nights of my life. Daniel's fingers moved before he could stop them. What year? 2006. Why? He'd been in Chicago that week, recording sessions for a commercial campaign. He'd gone to that same concert with Lydia. They'd sat in the balcony. She'd cried during the final piece. Daniel erased what he'd started to type. Wrote instead, just curious. That must have been incredible. Over the next 3 days, the messages came in steady rhythm. Morning, lunch, evening. The woman asked questions. Daniel answered. She told stories. He listened. She mentioned a documentary she'd seen about Miles Davis. Daniel said he'd watched it twice. She asked what he thought of Kind of Blue. He said it was perfect. She agreed. On Saturday morning, Daniel was eating breakfast when the phone buzzed. I know this might be forward, but would you want to meet in person? There's a restaurant in Hyde Park called Virtue. Sunday at 6? Daniel stared at the message. His coffee went cold. Imani walked into the kitchen, saw his face, and grabbed the phone. She wants to meet, Imani said. Say yes. I don't know. Dad, say yes. Daniel took the phone back, typed, okay, Sunday at 6. The response was immediate. Great. I'm looking forward to it. Daniel set the phone down, rubbed his face with both hands. Something about the way she wrote felt familiar. The cadence, the word choices, but he couldn't place it. Maybe he was imagining things. Maybe all messages sounded the same when you read them on a screen. That afternoon, he sat on the couch while Imani practiced piano in the corner. She was working through a gospel arrangement for choir. Her hands moved across the keys with the confidence of someone who'd been playing since she was 6. Daniel closed his eyes, listened. The melody shifted, became something else. He was in Nashville, Studio B. The room smelled like old carpet and coffee. Lydia sat beside him with her violin, the bow resting lightly on the strings. They'd been working for 6 hours on a film score, a drama about a man searching for his estranged daughter. The director wanted something that felt like loss and hope at the same time. Daniel played a progression on the piano, slow, descending. Lydia waited 2 beats, then came in with the violin. Her line wove through his, counter melody rising where his fell. They played for 3 minutes without stopping. When they finished, the room was silent. The producer stood in the doorway, a man named Carl, mid-50s, gray beard. He'd worked on 12 Oscar-nominated films. That's it, Carl said quietly. Lydia looked at Daniel, smiled. Play it again, Carl said. Exactly like that. The director's going to love this. Daniel started from the top. Lydia joined him on the 3rd measure. They played it through twice more. Carl recorded every second. When they stopped, Lydia leaned over and kissed Daniel's temple. We're going to be legends, baby, she whispered. She died 6 weeks later, a hotel room in Nashville, undiagnosed heart condition. Daniel had been in LA that day, a session for a car commercial. He got the call at 2 in the afternoon. He never finished the film score, never went back to Studio B, never played another session. He sold the piano 3 months after the funeral. The sound of Imani's playing pulled him back. She finished the arrangement, looked over at him. You okay? She asked. Daniel nodded. Yeah. You sure? Yeah, baby, I'm sure. Sunday morning, Daniel changed shirts 3 times, settled on a dark blue button-down. Imani watched from the doorway, arms crossed. You look good, she said. I look nervous. That's normal. She walked over, straightened his collar. Just be yourself. What if she doesn't like me? Then you come home and we never talk about this again. Imani stepped back, smiled. But I think she will. Daniel drove to Hyde Park alone. The restaurant was called Virtue. Southern food. He'd never been, but the reviews online said it was quiet, comfortable. He arrived at 5:52, parked on the street, sat in his car for 3 minutes. At 5:58, he walked inside. The hostess greeted him, asked if he had a reservation. Right, Daniel said. Table for 2. She led him to a booth near the window. He sat facing the glass, ordered water, checked his phone. No new messages. At 6:04, he looked up. The door opened, and Vivian Cross walked in. She stood in the doorway, scanning the room. Her hair was down, different from how she wore it at work. She had on a black dress and heels. Her expression was calm, confident, the expression of someone walking into a place she belonged. Then her eyes found Daniel. She stopped moving. Her mouth opened slightly. Her hand tightened on her purse strap. Daniel stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. They stared at each other across 15 feet of restaurant space. The ambient noise of conversation and clinking silverware filled the silence between them. Vivian's face shifted. Confusion, disbelief, something harder. She walked toward the table, each step deliberate. Daniel's pulse hammered in his neck. His hands hung at his sides. She stopped at the edge of the booth, looked down at him. Her eyes were sharp, cold. "What is this?" she said. Her voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of quiet that carried weight. Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "What kind of sick game are you playing?" Vivian's voice rose slightly. A couple at the next table glanced over. "I didn't," Daniel started. "You didn't what? You didn't know it was me?" She laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You've been messaging me for a week, talking about jazz, about Coltrane, pretending to be someone you're not." "I wasn't pretending. You're the mailroom guy." Her words came faster now, sharper. "You deliver my mail, you work in facilities, and now you're sitting here like this is normal, like you didn't manipulate the app to." "I didn't know it was you," Daniel said. His voice stayed level, quiet. "My daughter made the profile. She picked your match. I didn't see your photo. I didn't choose this." Vivian's jaw clenched. She looked away, looked back. "Your daughter." "Yes. So this is what? A joke? Something you and your kid cooked up to humiliate me?" "No." "Then what?" Daniel's hands curled into fists, relaxed. "She thought I needed to try dating. She made me a profile without asking. She picked you. I didn't know who you were until right now." Vivian stared at him. Her breathing had changed. Faster, shallow. "You're lying." "I'm not. You've been avoiding me for 18 months, changing your routes, hiding, and now you expect me to believe this is a coincidence? It is." "Bullshit!" The word came out hard, loud enough that 3 tables turned to look. The waitress approached, stopped, turned around and walked away. Vivian leaned forward. Her voice dropped to a whisper, a hiss. "I shared things with you, personal things. I told you about the Marsalis concert, about my college years, about—" She stopped, her face flushed. "I was vulnerable. I was real. And the whole time it was you, the guy who can't even look me in the eye when he delivers mail." Daniel's throat tightened. "I didn't know. You're pathetic." The word landed like a slap. Vivian straightened, adjusted her purse on her shoulder. Her hands were shaking. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "I didn't do anything. Monday morning, you'll see." She turned, walked 3 steps, stopped, turned back. "And for the record, I would have said yes if you'd been anyone else. Anyone at all." She left. The door closed behind her with a soft chime. Daniel stood there. The restaurant felt too bright, too loud. Conversations buzzed around him like static. He sat back down. Slowly. The waitress returned, asked if he was ready to order. "Just the water," Daniel said. "I'm leaving." She brought the check. He paid, left a tip. Outside, the air was cool. The sun had set. Street lights flickered on along the block. Daniel walked to his car, got in, sat with his hands on the steering wheel. His phone was in his pocket. He pulled it out, stared at the screen. He could call Imani, tell her what happened, tell her the date went wrong, tell her it was over. But his hands wouldn't move. He started the car, drove home. The apartment was dark when he arrived. Imani was at her friend's house for a sleepover. She wouldn't be back until tomorrow afternoon. Daniel unlocked the door, turned on the light. The living room was exactly as he'd left it. Piano in the corner, couch against the wall, table with 2 chairs. He sat on the couch, pulled out his phone, called Imani. She answered on the second ring. Music played in the background. Voices. "Dad, how'd it go?" Daniel closed his eyes. "It didn't work out." "What happened?" "Just wasn't a good match." "Did she show up?" "Yeah, she showed up." Imani was quiet for a moment. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, baby." "You sure?" "Yeah, have fun at Sarah's. I'll see you tomorrow." "Okay, love you." "Love you too." He ended the call, set the phone on the cushion beside him. The apartment was silent. No piano, no voices, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. Daniel sat in the quiet and waited for Monday. Monday morning, Daniel was called to HR before his shift started. The email came in at 7:52. Subject line, required meeting, no details, just a time and a room number. He walked to the 3rd floor. The HR office was at the end of a long hallway. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The carpet was dark blue. Corporate. A woman sat behind a desk, mid-40s, glasses. Her nameplate said Sharon Kimball. "Mr. Right," she said. "Please sit." Daniel sat. The chair was metal, cold. Sharon opened a folder, pulled out a printed document, slid it across the desk. "A complaint has been filed against you," she said. Her voice was calm, professional. "The complaint alleges that you manipulated company systems to stalk and harass a senior executive." Daniel's hands rested on his lap. He didn't move. "The evidence cited includes route changes you made over the past 18 months, alterations to your mail delivery schedule, avoidance patterns that the complainant interprets as obsessive tracking behavior." "That's not what happened," Daniel said quietly. "Can you explain?" Daniel looked at the document. He couldn't see Vivian's name, but he knew. "I was avoiding her," he said, "not tracking her. I changed my routes so I wouldn't see her, so she wouldn't see me." "Why?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "She humiliated me in front of 200 people. At the all-hands meeting, asked if I'd thought about getting my GED. People laughed." Sharon wrote something down. "When was this?" "Wednesday last week." "And you've been changing your routes for 18 months?" "Yes." "Why?" Daniel didn't answer. Because the first humiliation had been 18 months ago. Because Vivian had a habit of targeting people. Because invisibility was safer than exposure. But he couldn't say that without naming her. And naming her would make this worse. "I just wanted to avoid conflict," he said finally. Sharon closed the folder. "Mr. Wright, effective immediately, your building access is being restricted. You'll service only the basement storage facilities and parking garages. You'll work alone. No contact with other departments. This is pending the outcome of the investigation." Daniel's throat went dry. "How long?" "2 weeks. Possibly longer." She handed him a new badge. Red stripe across the bottom. "Restricted access." "You can start today," she said. Daniel took the badge, left the office, walked to the basement. The storage facility was in sub-level 2. Concrete walls, low ceilings, boxes stacked on metal shelving units. The air smelled like dust and old paper. There was no one else down there. Daniel spent Monday replacing light bulbs, organizing supply closets, sweeping floors no one walked on. He ate lunch in a storage room, alone. By Tuesday, the whispers had started. He didn't hear them directly, but he saw the looks, the way people stepped aside when he walked past, the way conversations stopped when he entered a space. At 2:30, he was in the parking garage stairwell, carrying a toolbox, heading to the 3rd level to check an emergency light. 2 voices echoed from the landing above. Women. He didn't recognize them. "I heard he catfished her." "Who?" "The CEO, Vivian. Set up a fake profile. Tricked her into going on a date." That's insane. I know. Apparently he's been obsessed with her for months, changing his schedule to follow her around. Creepy. Their footsteps faded. The stairwell went quiet. Daniel stood on the landing, gripped the toolbox handle. The metal was cold against his palm. He finished the day in silence. Clocked out at 6. Drove home. Wednesday afternoon, his phone rang during his shift. He was in the basement, replacing a water-damaged ceiling tile. Imani's name flashed on the screen. He answered. "Hey, baby. Dad." Her voice cracked. She was crying. Daniel set down the tile. "What's wrong?" "I did something bad." "Where are you? Are you hurt?" "I'm home. I'm fine, but I—" She stopped, sobbed. "I messed everything up. Imani, breathe. Tell me what happened." "The date, the Spark profile. That was my fault. I picked her. I didn't know it was your boss. I swear I didn't know." Daniel's chest tightened. "I know. It's okay." "It's not okay. She's trying to get you fired. People are saying things about you. And it's all because of me." "Imani, listen to me. This is not your fault." "It is." Her voice broke. "And there's something else." Daniel waited. "I've been uploading your music," she said. "Your old compositions. To a licensing site. For money. To help with rent. I know you said you didn't want to think about that stuff anymore. But I thought if I could help, then maybe— Baby, slow down. What site?" "It's called SoundSync. You upload music and companies can license it. I used your old files, the ones in the storage unit. I made an account under the name DW Archive. I didn't think anyone would actually use them." Daniel sat down on the concrete floor. "How long have you been doing this?" 6 months? Imani? One of them went viral, Dad. The piano piece. The one you wrote for Mom. Some skincare brand used it in a campaign. It's everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, everywhere." Daniel's hands went numb. "There's a publicist," Imani continued. "She's been trying to find you. She's been calling the number on the account, emailing. She wants to meet. She says the brand wants to do a partnership." "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I didn't answer. But she found the address, the one I put on the payment forms, our address, and she found your work. Castellane. It's all in the account profile." Daniel closed his eyes. "When did she contact you?" 3 weeks ago. The first email came 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks, before the date, before HR, before everything fell apart. Dad, I'm so sorry. It's okay. It's not. Imani. His voice was steady, calm, the tone he used when she was scared. "We'll figure this out. Together. You and me. Okay?" She sniffed. "Okay. I'll be home in an hour. We'll talk then." "Okay." He ended the call, sat in the basement, stared at the concrete wall. A publicist had been looking for DW for 3 weeks, and Imani had listed Castellane Media Group as his workplace, which meant someone, somewhere knew exactly where to find him. The woman arrived at Castellane reception at 10:43 Wednesday morning. She wore a navy suit and carried a leather portfolio. Her hair was pulled back. Professional. Polished. She walked to the security desk, smiled at the guard. "Hi, I'm looking for Daniel Wright. I have an appointment." The guard checked his computer. "You're not on the list. It's urgent. Business matter. Is he in the building?" The guard scrolled. "Daniel Wright. Facilities. He's in the basement. Sub-level 2. "Thank you." She took the elevator down. The doors opened onto a concrete corridor. Flickering fluorescent lights. The smell of cleaning solution and old paint. She walked until she found him. Daniel was on a ladder in a storage corridor, replacing a light fixture. His gray polo shirt had grease on the sleeve. His hands were steady on the screwdriver. "Excuse me," the woman said. "Daniel Wright?" Daniel looked down. Didn't recognize her. "Yeah. My name is Michelle Toure. I'm a publicist with Sterling Media. Do you have a minute?" Daniel climbed down from the ladder, set the screwdriver in his toolbox. "What's this about?" "The DW Archive, your music." Daniel's chest tightened. "I think you have the wrong person." "I don't think so." Michelle opened her portfolio, pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen. "This is a skincare campaign that launched 6 weeks ago. The music is from a licensing site called SoundSync. The composer is listed as DW Archive. The payment account traces back to this address in this workplace, Castellane Media Group. She turned the tablet toward him. The screen showed a video, a woman washing her face in slow motion. Soft lighting, piano and strings underneath. Daniel knew that composition. He'd written it 4 years ago, the week before Lydia died. There's been a mistake, Daniel said quietly. What kind of mistake? I don't compose anymore. Michelle tilted her head, studied him. The campaign has 47 million views, 2.3 million song saves. The brand wants to meet the composer. They want a partnership, a full album. This could be significant. I'm not interested. Why not? Daniel didn't answer. He turned back to the ladder. Can I speak to your supervisor? Michelle asked. No. Mr. Wright. I said no, but Michelle was already walking, back down the corridor, toward the elevator. Daniel dropped the screwdriver, followed her. Wait, stop. She pressed the call button. The elevator dinged, doors opened. I just need 5 minutes with someone in leadership, Michelle said, to clarify the situation. You don't understand. You can't. The doors closed. Daniel stood in the empty corridor. His pulse hammered in his throat. He pulled out his phone, called Imani. No answer. He texted, call me, now. Then he took the stairs, 2 at a time. Upstairs, Michelle Tour exited the elevator on the 14th floor. Executive offices. She walked to the receptionist's desk. Hi, I'm looking for someone in senior leadership. I have a business matter regarding one of your employees. Daniel Wright. The receptionist checked her calendar. Ms. Cross is in a strategy meeting right now. Conference room B, but I can... That's perfect, thank you. Michelle walked past the desk, down the hall, knocked on the conference room door, opened it. 8 people sat around a table. Vivienne Cross at the head. A screen on the wall showing quarterly projections, coffee cups, notebooks. Everyone looked up. I'm sorry to interrupt, Michelle said. My name is Michelle Toure. I'm a publicist with Sterling Media. I'm looking for information about one of your employees. Daniel Wright. Vivienne's expression shifted. Cold. Controlled. I'm in a meeting. I understand. This will only take a moment. I'm trying to reach the composer behind the DW archive. The account information lists Mr. Wright as the contact. He works in your facilities department. But when I spoke to him just now, he said there's been a mistake. Vivienne's jaw tightened. Daniel Wright works in facilities. He's not a composer. There's clearly been some kind of error. May I show you something? Michelle didn't wait for an answer. She walked to the front of the room, connected her tablet to the screen. The campaign video appeared. The music played. Piano, strings, soft and aching. A man sitting halfway down the table sat forward. He was in his 50s, black, silver in his beard. His name was Marcus Lyle, VP of Creative. He listened. His expression changed. Play that again, Marcus said quietly. Michelle restarted the video. The music filled the room. Marcus closed his eyes, listened, opened them. What did you say his name was? Marcus asked. Daniel Wright. His full name. You're sure? Yes, Daniel Wright. He's listed as the composer on the licensing site. The account has been active for 6 months. Marcus stood up, walked to the window, turned back, looked at Vivienne. D. Wright, he said. Jesus Christ, that's D. Wright. The room went quiet. You have D. Wright working in your mailroom? Marcus's voice was low. Disbelief. Vivienne's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. That's D. Wright's style. I'd recognize it anywhere. I worked on a campaign in 2016 that used his score. Indigo Moon. He did sessions with Alicia Keys. John Legend. He produced 3 tracks on Beyoncé's Lemonade. He was nominated for 3 Grammys. Michelle nodded. That matches the ASCAP records I pulled. D. Wright. Full name Daniel Wright. The CFO leaned forward. Why is a Grammy-nominated composer working in facilities? I don't know, Marcus said. He looked at Vivienne. Do you? Vivienne's hands gripped the edge of the table. Her knuckles went white. The room erupted. Questions, confusion. Someone pulled up D.D. Wright's credits on their laptop. Someone else searched for the SoundSync account. Marcus kept staring at Vivienne, and Vivienne sat perfectly still, her face drained of color, her carefully constructed world beginning to crack. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolled, found what he was looking for. Indigo Moon, he said. 2015. D. Wright composed the score. The film was nominated for Best Picture. The score was nominated for an Oscar. It lost, but the soundtrack went platinum. He turned his phone toward the table. The screen showed an album cover, a silhouette against a blue sky. The composer credit read, D. Wright. He did sessions with Alicia Keys in 2014, Marcus continued. John Legend in 2016 produced 3 tracks on Beyoncé's Lemonade. Same year, Grammy nominations in 2014, 2016, and 2018. Never won, but the nominations alone. Marcus shook his head. This is one of the most respected composers of the last decade. Michelle nodded, opened her laptop. I pulled his ASCAP records before I came here. 11 platinum certifications, over 200 film and commercial credits. His work has been licensed in 43 countries. The CFO leaned forward. Her name was Patricia Cole. She was in her 60s. Sharp, no nonsense. Why is a composer of that caliber working in our mailroom? She asked. No one answered. Patricia looked at Vivian. Did you know about this? No. You're his direct supervisor. He works in facilities. I don't... Vivian stopped. Her hands gripped the table edge. I don't interact with that department. Marcus stood. I'm going to talk to him. Wait, Vivian said. We need to discuss. But Marcus was already out the door. He took the stairs down to sub-level 2, found Daniel in the same corridor where Michelle had found him, sitting on the floor, back against the wall, head in his hands. Marcus stopped a few feet away. Daniel. Daniel looked up. His eyes were red. Come with me, Marcus said quietly. I can't. Yes, you can. We need to talk. The whole team. Upstairs. I don't want... I know. Marcus's voice softened. But this is happening whether you want it or not. So you can either sit down here in the dark, or you can come up and tell them yourself. Your choice. Daniel's jaw tightened. He stood, wiped his face with the back of his hand. They rode the elevator in silence, walked down the hallway together, entered the conference room. 8 faces turned toward Daniel. Michelle stood near the screen. Vivian sat at the head of the table, her expression frozen. Marcus gestured to an empty chair. Sit. Daniel sat. He looked at the table, not at anyone. Daniel, Marcus said, we know who you are, or who you were. D. Wright, the composer. What we don't know is why you're here, in the mailroom, so I'm asking. What happened? The room waited. Daniel's hands rested on his lap. His breathing was controlled, steady. My wife died, he said finally. His voice was quiet, flat. 4 years ago, May 21st, 2021. We were on tour. She was a session violinist. We were working on a campaign in Nashville. She had an undiagnosed heart condition. She collapsed in a hotel room. I was in LA recording. I got the call at 2 in the afternoon. No one moved. We had a daughter, Imani. She was 7. I walked away from everything the next day, sold every instrument I owned, moved back to Chicago, got the first job that offered stability and health insurance. That was here, Castellane, mailroom, June 2021. Marcus nodded slowly. And you've been here ever since? Yes. Why didn't you tell anyone? I didn't want to be found. Patricia spoke. Mr. Wright, I'm sorry for your loss, but I have to ask. Why would a man with your credentials and earning potential choose to work in facilities? Daniel looked at her. Because my daughter needed me present, not traveling, not in studios 18 hours a day. She needed a father who came home every night. That was more important than a career. The room was silent. Marcus leaned against the wall, crossed his arms. Daniel, we need a composer, in-house, for our documentary division. We're producing a series on unsung Black musicians of the Civil Rights era. It's a major project. 12 episodes. We need original scoring. I'd like to offer you the position. Composer in residence. You'd work on site, flexible hours, full benefits, salary commensurate with your experience. Daniel's throat tightened. I appreciate that, But I can't. Why not? Because I don't compose anymore. You did once. That was a different life. Marcus pushed off the wall, walked closer. Your daughter uploaded your work to a licensing site for rent money. She did that because she knows what you're capable of, because she believes in you, even if you don't believe in yourself. Daniel's hands curled into fists. Vivian stood. Before we continue this conversation, there are HR issues that need to be resolved first. Marcus turned, looked at her. What issues? Vivian's face was composed, professional. Mr. Wright is currently under investigation for harassment and stalking. Until that's resolved, I don't think it's appropriate to... What harassment? Marcus asked. He manipulated company systems to track my movements. Change his routes to follow me? He's been doing it for 18 months. Daniel's jaw locked. He didn't speak. Marcus looked at him. Is that true? I changed my routes to avoid her, Daniel said quietly. Not to follow her. There's a difference. Why did you need to avoid her? Vivian's expression shifted. This isn't relevant. A woman at the far end of the table stood. She was young, late 20s, brown hair pulled back. Her hands trembled slightly. Her name was Kira, Vivian's executive assistant. It's relevant, Kira said. Everyone turned. Vivian's face went cold. Kira, sit down. No. Kira's voice was steady. I have emails, time-stamped. The harassment complaint was filed Monday morning, 3 days after you went on a blind date and discovered your match was Daniel. The complaint claims he's been stalking you for 18 months. But the GED comment, the public humiliation that made him start avoiding you, that happened at the all-hands meeting last week. I was there. I saw it. This isn't about harassment. It's retaliation. Vivian stood perfectly still. You're fired. You can't fire me for telling the truth. Patricia leaned forward. Ms. Cross, is this accurate? Vivian didn't answer. Ms. Cross, Patricia said again, did you go on a date with Mr. Wright? It was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Did you file a harassment complaint after that date? Vivian's breathing changed, faster, shallow. Patricia turned to Marcus. I think we need to pause this conversation. Ms. Cross, you're placed on administrative leave effective immediately. We'll be launching an internal review. Marcus, you'll oversee operations in the interim. Vivian's face drained of color. You can't. I can, Patricia said. And I am. Please leave the building. Vivian looked around the table. At Marcus, at Kira, at Daniel. No one looked back. She walked out. The door closed behind her. Patricia turned to Daniel. Mr. Wright, the harassment complaint is dismissed. On behalf of Castellane, I apologize for what you've been through. Marcus's offer stands. If you want the position, it's yours. Daniel sat in the chair, his hands on his lap, his eyes on the table. I need to think about it, he said quietly. Take all the time you need. Daniel stood, walked out, took the elevator down, clocked out, drove home. And for the first time in 4 years, he didn't know what came next. The day Daniel walked out of Castellane, he didn't go to work the next morning. He stayed home, made breakfast, waited for Imani to wake up. She came into the kitchen at 8:30, still in her pajamas, hair in 2 braids that were coming loose. You're home, she said. Yeah. Are you sick? No, we need to talk. They sat at the table. Daniel told her everything. The publicist, the meeting, Marcus's offer, Vivian's leave, Kira's courage. Imani listened, didn't interrupt. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. What are you going to do? She asked finally. I don't know. Do you want to compose again? Daniel looked at his hands, the same hands that had played sessions in Nashville, that had written scores in L.A., that had held Lydia's violin case while she tuned before a recording. I'm scared, Owana, he said. Of what? That if I go back, I'll lose you the way I lost her. Imani reached across the table, put her hand on his. Dad, you didn't lose Mom because of music. You lost her because her heart stopped. That's not the same thing. Daniel's throat tightened. And hiding didn't bring her back, Imani continued. Her voice was steady, clear. It just made you smaller. Mom wouldn't want that. She'd want you to play. She'd want you to live. Daniel's eyes burned. He blinked, looked at his daughter. When did you get so smart? He whispered. I've always been smart. You just weren't paying attention. He called Marcus that afternoon, said yes, on one condition: flexible hours. Mornings for Imani's school, Fridays completely hers. Marcus agreed without hesitation. 6 months later, Daniel sat in an office on the 8th floor of Castellane Media Group. The space had windows, natural light, a desk with a computer and monitors, a keyboard in the corner. Not a piano, just a MIDI controller. But it was enough. He was working on a documentary series. 12 episodes. Unsung black musicians of the civil rights era. Gospel singers who never got recording contracts. Jazz pianists who played in basement clubs. Composers whose work was stolen by white producers and sold under different names. Daniel scored each episode like he was writing a letter to people who'd been forgotten, honoring them, giving them sound. Marcus stopped by his office most afternoons, listened to drafts, offered notes. They'd become friends. The kind of friendship built on mutual respect and shared history. Marcus had worked in the industry long enough to know what Daniel had walked away from. He never asked why. He just made space for Daniel to rebuild. Kira had been promoted to Junior VP of Operations. She ran staff meetings now, set policy, fixed the things Vivian had broken. She and Daniel didn't talk much. But when they passed in the hallway, she nodded. He nodded back. An understanding between two people who'd survived the same storm. Vivian had resigned 4 months ago. The internal review had uncovered what Kira already knew: inflated credentials, fabricated work history, an MBA she'd never finished, a job title she'd never held. The board had given her the option to resign quietly or be terminated publicly. She chose resignation. No one had seen her since. December came. Cold wind off the lake, snow that turned to slush by afternoon. Imani's youth choir had their winter concert at the church on Stony Island. Daniel had written a piece for them, a gospel arrangement, 3-part harmony, piano and vocals. Simple, clean, built for young voices. He sat in the 3rd row, watched Imani take her place in the 2nd tier. She wore a white blouse and black skirt. Her hair was in 2 puffs. She looked so much like Lydia it hurt. The choir director gave the cue. Imani and the other girls began to sing. The piece was called Keep Going. It was about resilience, about getting up after you fall, about choosing to move forward even when the past pulls you back. Daniel listened, watched his daughter's mouth form the words he'd written, watched her hands keep time against her skirt. Tears slid down his face. He didn't wipe them away. When the song ended, the audience stood, applauded. Imani's eyes found his in the crowd. She smiled. Afterward, they drove to the cemetery. It was May 21st, 4 years since Lydia died. They went every year, brought flowers, sat in the grass, talked to her like she could hear. This year, Daniel brought something else, a portable keyboard, battery-powered, light enough to carry. He set it up on the ground near her headstone. Imani sat beside him, sheet music in her hands. Daniel placed his fingers on the keys, played the opening progression, the piece he'd written for Lydia the week before she died, the piece Imani had uploaded, the piece that had gone viral, the piece that had brought him back. It was called Stay, piano and strings, soft and aching, a conversation between 2 instruments that loved each other. Imani waited 4 measures. Then she began to harmonize. Her voice was clear, pure. It wove through the melody like Lydia's violin had once woven through Daniel's piano. They played for 3 minutes. No one else was in the cemetery. Just the 2 of them and Lydia's grave and the music. When they finished, the air was quiet. Birds called from the trees. The wind moved through the grass. Daniel sat with his hands resting on the keys. I miss her, Imani said quietly. Me too. But I'm glad you're playing again. Daniel looked at his daughter. Me too, baby. They packed up the keyboard, walked back to the car. The sun was setting. Orange light spilled across the cemetery. Imani climbed into the passenger seat, buckled her seatbelt. Dad? Yeah? What are you working on next? Daniel started the engine, looked at her, smiled. Something for you, he said. They drove home through the quiet streets of Chicago, and for the first time in 4 years, Daniel Wright felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.